Sorry. Once again, welcome everyone. Good morning, and this is the Good Morning Education Show. My name is Rotimi Retire. Such a pleasure to be here once again. Remember, the Good Morning Education Show is a show that we have Mondays all through Sundays, and we come on the show Mondays to Fridays, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. West African time, and then we proceed on Saturday to have a bit of a change in timing. And we have on Saturdays the session and the show for 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And on Sundays, we have the show 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's always a great time on the show. And like we always say, and our mantra on the show is it's always a great morning on the Good Morning Education Show. It promises to be a great morning every time, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes, or it's an hour that you have the opportunity to spend with us. We believe it's certainly going to be a great time. And today is not going to be an exception. We're going to be talking about some conversations that affect issues within and around the world of education. Yesterday was an interesting one. We spent some time talking about should we teach forever? And on Monday, our conversation was about having a life based year. Teaching forever, we're able to clarify certain notions and concerns or questions that might lurk um, in the hearts and the minds of professionals within that space of teaching. We're able to also dissect to a large extent some measure of how would I put it, the dichotomy between the teaching job and the different jobs as in teaching. We went further to talk a bit about the teaching career. We further also spent time to make people understand about the teaching profession. And of course, towards the end, we kind of spent a lot of time trying to re-emphasize when people say that they are lifelong learners or they love lifelong learning or they believe in lifelong learning. And we sometimes back it up by saying learning never ends. We need to also realize for lifelong learning to take place, there has to also be lifelong teaching. And that is through the instrumentality, the giftings, and the expression, or the facilitation of teaching, which is done by the person of a teacher. Today is another day, and on the Good Morning Education Show, we will be talking about tech transitions for teachers. Tech transitions for teachers. Waking up into the new year, you know, just as it is the normal custom, we begin to find things trend from time to time. You begin to hear about this thing trending, you begin to hear about that thing trending, and before you know it, it becomes a phenomenon. It becomes a facade. It becomes something that people in themselves, pushing towards, gravitating to migrate into. And this is why it will be good to spend time to talk about it. Yes, we've not had an opportunity, not that we've not had an opportunity, but we've not really been able to say that we joined the people talking about GPT, for example. The AI buzz and trend, was one of the key things that we could say characterized the first month of 2023. And a lot of us have come back to realize that in 2020 was also more or less the first quarter just before the lockdown in March, where we were also talking about a lot of transitioning in tech, which was heavily now forced down the throat of many due to the COVID-19 lockdown. And we also saw that in that same vein, a lot of people began to explore the use of some tools that have been there before now, but had not received so much wide adoption. We had the likes of Zoom, we had the likes of Google Classroom, because a lot of things still had to go on in the public space, especially in the teaching and the school space. That the lockdown should not be a deterrent for it. And so people began to look inward, people began to forcefully migrate into tech. And I think it's not something that will end like that. Transitions are not to be seen as strange in professions, most especially teaching. We are familiar with the body of knowledge changing from time to time. We are familiar with curricular change. We're familiar with different adopting outcome. We also see that there's a huge surge in synchronizing learning and experience in school to a point of global equilibrium. I was almost going to say something that was also another trend. When we begin to hear these things, we don't know when it comes into your mouth. You know. So today I'm going to spend some time to take you on that journey, and I'll try to take us on a safe lane. And when I say safe lane, I'm trying to say that I'm not looking so much into areas that look a bit too technical, that people might not be able to appreciate or understand um, how these things work. But I honestly believe that it is a good opportunity for us to look into all this, and begin to pick it up one step at a time. And when we're able to do that, we'll also begin to appreciate that not just the technical side of things, but we could also still appreciate the value or the valuable side. And as we spend time to talk about today's topic, please, on the Good Morning Education Show, we always like to welcome people who are joining us for the first time. We also like to welcome you for joining, um, and we want you to be able to tell us your name, your location where you're streaming from. So please do let us know. I'm waiting. Welcome to the Good Morning Education Show, everyone. Tell us your name and location you're streaming from. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I said earlier, I'm Rotimi Itai, your host for today. Hopefully, we might have some analysts join us, but my name is Rotimi Itai, and I'm streaming from Lagos, Nigeria, to West Africa, to Africa, and the entire world. So let's not waste time. Let's get into the meat of the matter. And we're talking about a topic which pretty much is is in alignment with what's happening. Apologies for that. So when we talk about tech transition for teachers, like I started by saying, we must settle it in our minds and in our hearts that transitions in career are naturally things to expect. It is normal for transitions to happen. In fact, I think when we experience no or little transitions, that in itself become a strange element. It becomes something that is not so encouraged. It's not something that is uh, appealing, as it were. And that's where we need to put our minds to understand it. Well, I'm going to start by saying, if you are a teacher considering moving from education into tech, or better still, moving further, not just from education into tech, but getting into expression of edtech, you need to know many things, about tech, and you need to be able to embrace those things about tech, right? Um, and there are tech careers that are in high demand, right? And there are tech fields that we should be able to identify and explore so that we can easily find a mixture and a blend in our career path. But I want to first start by saying that tech transition for teachers can actually be championed, or can actually you know, um, be something that you can push in different ways. The first track is for you to realize that tech transition for teachers can actually be an invitation for teachers to explore embedding tech, to explore the world of tech, even for teachers. So it's almost not necessarily leaving the core tenets of education or the core dy- dynamics of education or the core domain of education. It's just saying that the world of tech um, can be brought into the world of teaching. It can be brought into the world of education, either from level of immersion, integration, application, and all forms of, bringing this into being. And the other side is where teachers also can easily begin to leapfrog into some measure, you know, of tech field that is not necessarily an academic domain. So some tech skills, require certain kind of some tech careers require certain kind of skills, or we could also say it requires certain kind of tech skills, and some do not. It's almost like when you just think about it and say, well, technology simply means that you need to be in a position where you know how to code. But most of the time, it's not always about coding. It's not always about, having all those things in engagement of some sort, and this is very critical, as we think about tech transitions for teachers. We must begin to have a better, but not just better, a broader perspective, you know. And from there, you begin to see that teachers will now realize that while there's need for them to have things like coding skills, and I know I used to have a conversation with a friend and a brother, Judah Shedu, a very competent hand. Um, we've talked about several things, and I would really love to have his view on some of the things we're talking about this morning. But then we're also looking at things from the perspective where you can easily say, what are the skills that you could call tech skills? Skills that can actually take, into cognizance certain things that you need to have. When we highlight these things, it also gives you some measure of SWOT analysis to be able to identify your strength. I identify not just your strength, your capacity as well, you know. But then there are things that might come into your mind, that what are the options that teachers have, to actually move into tech. I think that number one, you could think about it from the fact that you could be an instructional designer. There's that transition that people can actually look into or try to explore. Uh, when you think about that itself, it presents itself as an area where people think about it, because as teachers present an opportunity in that career path. So people can transition into the the pathway to become instructional designers. um, and then of course we all know that the appreciation and the demand, for learning online is not something you can second guess. It's not something you can. It is a norm. It is the new normal. And therefore we can also begin to think about people who begin to take that domain of e-learning, go into e-learning, not just e-learning transformation, but e-learning development, which means that we also need e-learning developers. And that means that you can easily have educators, teachers in particular, can actually transition. We're talking about tech transition for teachers. They can transition into, e-learning development or e-learning developers. So you're a teacher, you're not just a teacher, you're a tutor, you're not just a tutor, you are also an e-learning developer. So people are not limited or stuck in a box. Let me welcome Rhoda. Good morning, Rhoda. How are you today? Thank you for joining.
Yeah, good morning. Real happy new year. Love your red glasses though. Welcome back to welcoming myself back to the Good Morning
Yes,
Education
sir.
Show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So we're talking about tech transitions. We started this week on an interesting note. On Monday, our focus on Monday was more about how the life this year, and Tuesday we spent some time talking about that. Yesterday, we spent some time talking about what we were talking about again. Yesterday was on what's happening now? Well, yeah, teachers should we teach forever? And now today we're talking about tech transitions for teachers. You tech transitions for teachers. Mike is muted.
Yes. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to say something yet.
Yes, yes, please do, please do. Just give us a little bit of intro or
Okay.
your thoughts on the topic.
You know how they say that something is an idea whose time has come. I think this conversation, it's not just an idea whose time has come. It has come, it has landed, it is working, it is doing what it's supposed to do, whether teachers, educators, school leaders, any human being in any field likes it or not. Tech has served as an accelerator, as a disruptor, and it will continue to serve its purpose in, supporting projects, tools, people, lifestyle in accessing and simplifying solutions. So um, it is not a case of transitioning, whether we would educators or teachers would transition. It's a case of when are you jumping on the train because the train is moving. Um, Having said that, there is because we do live in a digital world and it's going to continuously increase in that pattern because as more children are born, they are born into a world that is tech driven. Many times, they are unable to understand. The children we serve are unable to understand the reasons why we are not where they need to be or where they are. Particularly that we have to be teaching children for a world that is tech driven. Um, so hence the argument these days that where foundational literacies or numeracies matter, so does digital literacy matter. And that's also the scope for this transition. So the important conversation for me is like how then do we go about it? How then do we go about making sure that teachers, support move and transit with technology? And I mean there are models for doing this, and in time, as we go on with the conversation, we'll continue to share that. But again, it's an idea whose time has come. They say that it's a famous quote that says that um, uh, um, technology will not replace teachers, but teachers who do not use technology will be replaced by those who do. So, yeah. I can't seem to hear you. Are you muted? Is that me? Oh, wow. Listen, I can't hear you anymore. Don't know why.
Hello. Oh dear. I hope you can all hear me. If you can, please do let me know. And let me see. Dorcas from Edo State, good morning. Welcome to the show. Dorcas, I hope you can hear me. If you can hear me, just say, yes, I can. Thank you for joining us on the show. This is the Good Morning Education Show. And today we're talking about tech transitions for teachers. Rhoda, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
I think the tech powers are trying to affect the audio in
Interesting.
the broadcast. All right. So I was just trying to say that you made a very powerful statement in the last comment you made, and I was saying that yes, they say technology might not replace teachers, but uh, teachers who use technology might replace teachers who don't. In the end, it's still almost the same thing as saying
I've lost you again. I don't know why. I can't hear anything.
Rhoda, are you there now?
Yes, yes. I hope it doesn't go off again.
Sorry about that. So I was just trying to
Mm.
explain the fact that there are also levels and areas that teachers also can look at. Just like you said, it's a train that it's a moving train and you need to hop on it. And technology as an accelerator. I was talking about the fact that then their needs are out there that teachers can transition to, and doesn't necessarily
Mhm.
mean that they've left the world of teaching or the profession of teaching, even though it still has to do with tech. And many people also have this belief that when you talk about tech, you need to talk about coding skills. And there's
Ah.
certain tech
Mhm.
realities. Hello.
I can hear you.
Okay, so I said there are certain tech realities that might not start with coding. What's your thought on that? Let me ask you that question. Can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I don't even know if I can.
I can hear you. You're
I can
loud and
hear you.
clear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. I mean, I was even just looking at whether I could share my screen a little bit. Let's see if that's possible.
Yes, it's possible.
I don't know what's going on. Did I come in twos?
What, what was the option that you had when you wanted to share the screen?
uh, Interesting. So I won't even bother sharing because I don't know whether I'll come as a third person, whether into Trinity. hmm hmm
That, that,
I wanted to quickly
that,
share my screen to talk a little bit, to
that split
throw some
transition.
light to throw some light into the ways that we've supported teachers with this tech transition. And there's a model called the SAMR model. And that's what I wanted to present, but I'm also going to leave it rather than present it on the screen, because if I try that, the tutorial road I will show. Anyway, the SAMR model is just pretty much one that helps teachers to begin to transit and sees technology as a an incremental advancement. So it starts with, it's kind of like two stages. So there's the first stage, which is really for enhancement technology as an enhancer, and then it leads to the second stage, which is technology as a transformer. What that says is that you start by substitute by doing some small changes. And like you said, it doesn't really need to be that I'm a coder, because guess what? Even the coding universe might soon be automated. It might just need, tap on the button and it's coded for you. So it's not as much as that. It's more about the tools that you are using to engage in learning. So right now we have something called the Chat GPT, which is revolutionizing the way we view knowledge acquisition. Now that with Chat GPT, kids can actually type, give me an essay on a girl who is looking out on the window, and in seconds they will get an automated essay. What does that say? That says that there are certain things that we tech is already doing that is going to disrupt the way we understand knowledge acquisition or learning as an experience. So teachers are begin in countries that are very much more developed than we are beginning to be worried that isn't Chat GTP is going to shake the foundation of how they support children learning, for particularly to build rigor in learning. But the argument there is, look, if Chat GPT functions like that exist, then what do we really need to get kids to do? Is it to get them to write the essay, or is it to get them to get that essay and do the analysis of that essay in real time? Sometimes we now ask ourselves, what are the skills then do we need? Which is why if we look at all of the projections of the future world of world skills, let's forget about Africa right now, because Africa has its own peculiar situation. But I do believe that Africa is a case. It's not. I was sharing at the British Council the other day that Africa is not a charity case; it's a business case, right? So we can discuss that and say, hey, how is Africa going to lead African children, how African children, all of our rural communities, going to leapfrog into this space? Because they will. But where I was going to is that it's not even about coding. So it's more about how do you start with something, the S for the SAMR says substitution. How does technology serve as a direct substitute with no real functional change? That's where you start from, right? And a quick example there is, rather than have children look at a globe, for example, a real life globe, why don't you as a teacher, ask them to bring in, look at the Google map on a device? That's a switch immediately. It's not something that needs to change for you. It's just something that you need to replace. You now replace. Why do children have to write notes? Why don't they present their notes in another format? So that's where you start from, simple small substitution with no real functionality. The function is the same, the reason behind the function is the same, and then slowly it goes to the A part, which is the augmentation, right? Technology then acts as the direct substitute. You have, because you want to functionally improve. So now you are saying, you know what, it was better because more people had access to Google Map because they were able to reach it. So now I want every child to reach it. So now there's functional improvement. So you know what? We're no more going to use the globe, because it will take turns for every child to go through the globe. Now every child can have access to the globe on a device that is just beside them, right? Things like that. And then before, as you slowly grow into that, you see that your skills. One thing I learned from my own experience is that the more I used tech, the better I got. It was really, tech is such a beautiful tool because it gives you so many fail safes. It's always telling you how to. I wish we taught the way technology teaches us, because tech, it will always give you the clues. Hover over any button to suggest to you what that button is. It will set you, and your fail safes are so clear that it makes you feel safe to make mistakes, which is not quite apparent in our teaching in our classrooms today. Children feel worried
Yeah.
about making mistakes, but technology doesn't do that to you. It doesn't do that to you. It gives you so many fields, it gives you many clues and cues, and it helps you, with the speed at which you can able to bring things together. So it's now about the rigor. Yeah. So as you build all those skills from substitution to augmentation, then you move on to modification. This time around, it now allows you to change your design, right? You now redesign completely, and then you can now start getting to the highest level of redefinition, where you now use it to start creation. So it's not really about coding, that's the point I wanted to make by sharing this model. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very instructive, because from time to time a lot of people experience fear or the cold feet, and the SAMR is
I've lost you, Rosimi.
okay.
You're
Is
back.
it better
You're back.
now?
Yes.
Is the internet. We're trying to move through different network service provider.
I know.
So yeah, but in the heart of this, and I've heard you, speak to several teachers. I know you're a passionate educator, and you really want people to improve their learning experience and outcomes. How do we now deal with the issue of relationship between teachers and students? The
I'm losing you again. Are you back? Yeah. Even doctors, if you can hear me, please let me know. Right. How does technology affect teacher-student relationships? Yes. I mean, I can even use my children. So it also depends on, I normally like to term teachers as instructional leaders. And that's because the word leadership actually is critical to building relationships. So if a teacher sets the stage for them to serve as servant leaders in the classroom as instructional leaders, then the dynamic of the relationship relationship building has to be uh, organized or designed by the teacher. um, does technology affect student teacher student relationship? It can, if the design of the experience itself is not tailored to build relationships. So let me give an example. Imagine when it was during the pandemic, most of the worries were that yes, we could get children on board to learn lessons on Zoom, live Zoom, and all of that. But it wasn't the same with the real life experience where teachers could, get a sense of how the children were feeling, um, you know, um, actually intently chat with them privately. But if you think about it, a teacher who is intentional about building relationships, the Zoom itself had features that could enable relationship building, easily. First of all, you could private chat anyone, any child. There was that opportunity. Secondly, you could use emoticons, to share your the way you're feeling. You could ask children to use emoticons to share the way they're feeling, and then um, post that when if you had tasks for children to do or students to do, they could engage on various platforms where there's knowledge sharing. Um, but more importantly is how the teachers serving as instructional leaders designs the comfortability levels of the students in the classroom. So if you have a sort of like agreements with the students, here are a set of our agreements designed by all of us together, just the way we would regularly do in the classroom. That also helps to build relationships. I think maybe from the scope from which you were speaking, I may have not covered, but I do think that technology continues to be a real big opportunity for teachers to build relationships, because now you can contact your children as frequently as possible. What with areas where areas that were difficult for students to. I mean, I think about my daughter who has constant conversations with her teachers about what she's struggling with in a specific subject area, and they're not together all the time, but every time the teacher responds. Um, and so there's a beyond the classroom relationship that didn't exist before now. Um, and so it's really about the design. It's really about how the teachers who are serving as instructional leaders design the experience. It can affect if you are the teacher who just look. I always say it. If you were less than a great teacher pre-pandemic, um, yeah, the technology is going to mess you up. So because you might not be able to, fit yourself into it. So it's really about who the quality of the person who is serving as a leader in front of the children. Oh,
What readiness should teachers have when it comes to tech transition?
if I were to answer that question, it's like I'll look at it from like the way we look at domains of learning in education. So um, we say in education that there are three domains, right? We have the psychomotor, which is your physical body and the bodily movements in response to learning. um, we have the cognitive, which is literally using your learning the science of your neurology and your brain to sort of like learn. And then there's the emotional side of things, right? So there's readiness on all fronts. You really need to make the move first. You need to be intentional about how am I going to. You need to practice, so you need to practice. You need to take away the first level of fear. Like, how do I navigate this thing? Get there. Technology helps you to feel safe. Like we've been saying it every time. Everything I know how to do yesterday, I was showing my husband how Google Docs had evolved. Because what do? I open a Google Doc and I start hovering around all the features. I start looking and clicking. I'm not using Google Doc a document. I'm opening a blank document, right? It's a blank document, not a document that maybe somebody has used before or anything. I'm just a blank document just for me to what? Experiment. Because as much as I do know how to use it very well, I still see that these tech guys continue to improve every single day. So if I could even present it here, I will show you. Right now, it's almost as if they've brought Google Sheets into Google Doc, because now you can actually
Yeah,
create drop down project review kind of like status updates there, where you can say started, not started, completed, in progress, and all of that. It's now in Google Doc. Why did I know? Nobody, I didn't see it on the internet. I didn't go searching for it. I just have a default setting to open documents that I will frequently use and hover around the features, just like a child will be playing with toys and dismantling the toys. I'm just there getting to stuff like so. There's the general interest that needs to be there to say to yourself, "I can, and I will be." Make those two bold statements. I can, or even three. I am a tech teacher. I can be a tech teacher, and I will be. Once you make those bold statements, you find yourself. If it is that you don't have a device, you do everything to get a device, then you do everything to find yourself in a space that there are devices, and you start hovering around those features and learning for yourself. And mentally, you need to tell yourself, And in this, I can, I am, I can, and I will be is also a mental and emotional state of mind. It's a mindset that needs to be shifted. And so a mindset shift needs to happen, right? And then you now need to go into the journey of learning. Go ask questions. The internet, like they say, is a university. I tell my kids, the YouTube is is the world's best university. There's no field, no question you will ask that you don't have things to learn on YouTube. So you now have to be ready to spend that money, that little money that you have. You have to spend it to be somewhere where you keep learning. I keep asking, I keep learning.
That's the next question I was going to ask you.
Mm.
Is tech transition for teachers expensive?
Okay, let's even look at it. First of all, how many teachers use phones, right? Let's say you have phones. Mm? So you bought a phone, right? Was
Yes.
that expensive for you? Is my question. That's the first. If you can answer that question,
It's
then
a relative, relative question.
good. It's a relative question. I agree. I do not disagree. I agree that it's a relative question. But if it was expensive, let's say imagine that the answer is yes, it was expensive. Why did you get it then? Why? It was expensive, but why? Why did you get it? Why did you move to get it? Oh, maybe it was a gift. Why did you accept the gift? You accepted it because you wanted to use it, right, for certain things, whether it's for communicating or we too, I have a phone or whatever it is. There was a reason and a motive behind receiving it as a gift, making an effort to purchase it for yourself, and to use it for whatever functions you want. The entire world is building technology. Every solution in technology is mobile enabled.
Yeah.
In fact, if you do not have a mobile enabled version of the technology that you have designed, it is considered that you're not ready for the market. And likely you will not launch, because through the pilot stages, you would know that already. Okay, because that's what everybody is using. It's mobile technology is where everything rests. So if it is expensive for you to buy a phone or receive a phone as a gift, then I guess the answer is for you, whatever it is for you. But effort has to be made, because if you have a device on your hand, then with that device on your hand is an opportunity to learn everything I've just said here. Whether it's a WhatsApp. I remember when it was during the pandemic, and WhatsApp was designed as an assessment tool. You could actually ask questions. With schools design, you could actually send children questions and then give them options, and you knew from the back end what was happening. You could learn with children. You could do videos, albeit hazy videos that the videos are not clear. The point is that the children were hearing you, and you were passing a message. You could use it for motivation, for this, for that. It's so many things you could do. And then if you want to go even bigger, and you need a laptop to do the work, there is time for that. You don't have to make the effort. There is nothing. You've heard this. We have this common phrase we all know: nothing good comes easy.
Nothing great also comes without a cost.
Right. That's right.
I love the fact that you said effort has to be made. The truth about it, everything will not fall on everyone's laps. You just have to know that it will require you to do something. And that's the question. I know that you are a woman of many parts. So in your curricular journey, in your interventions and all that, what exactly is Learning Craft doing to champion this change?
Right. So for us at Learning Craft, it has been, and I mean, it's been a journey for many years now, where we've been trying to support teachers to, build their skills, whether it was in classroom, out of classroom, set of skills. And our job really is really just to equip also children the experience, the teaching and learning experience, whether it's from the lens of professional development or the lens of creating materials and solutions that support what we call equitable, inclusive education. And part of what we hold sacred at the Learning Craft is care and empathy and inclusion, and where digital literacy enthusiast and green education, enthusiast. So there's a lot that's coming out from the Learning Craft in this time. Right now, one of the major projects we have is really to create student materials that changed and revolutionized the experience of learning in classrooms. And our focus is on a specific area of skills. And the team is going to be creating materials for children across Africa. Um, and what we're trying to do is, help support the building of skills for life, for children, for life outcomes, for teachers, and for their own life outcomes. We're actually not particular about only the students, we're also particular about the teachers who experience the resources that we create or experience the learning experiences that we share with them. So our goal is really to, at the end of the day, is to build an Africa where every child thrives and every teacher thrives.
Wow, an Africa where every teacher thrives. And it looks like a tall dream actually, but it's not impossible. It's doable. It is
Yeah.
something that we also look forward to partnering to ensure that it
Mhm.
moves from a dream to a
Mm.
reality. Sometimes when we use the word "I have a dream," oh, my dream is to. Sometimes we forget that we're never expected to stay in the dream realm. If you think about it, is they call it La La Land, right? You're not
Mhm.
expected to stay. So if you
Yeah.
have dreamed, yeah, there is a time expected for you to leave the dream mode, you know,
Yeah.
and get into the doing mode,
I mean, Rotimi,
I
for us, like we're saying, our target is 1 million children in 3 years, right? That's a lot of children to reach our resources. So you can only imagine. So work has to be done. Work has to be done. If we're saying 1 million children, how many classrooms are those? Think about it. So if we do that math, they say, okay, divide an average classroom by 40. We're talking about 250. We're talking about 25,000 classrooms, right? So target, you have to put a number to it. You have to put an action to it. You have to, so you can't just keep saying here's a, and then you have to design the experience to actually get there. So the design, from the design side to the implementation side to the point of evidence sharing side. Um, yeah, it's really what needs to be done. So I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, so and as we kind of get towards the end of today's show, I know that there are certain things in your heart and beyond the questions that we've asked. Talking about tech transition for teachers,
Mm,
I know there are things that you carry in your heart, like it's like when a mother is about to bring forth. Do you want to just share your? I won't call it parting shots because it can't necessarily be titled that. But what are the things that you want people to pay close attention to? As we really look at this.
Um, I mean, the way I would, a very good question. What are the things I want folks to focus on? Um, Rotimi, you and I know many times that sometimes we even, because we have opportunity, you and I have an opportunity to hire and look for skill. Um, One of the bigger problems that we've experienced is that whilst people present with skills, they also many times when they are tasked to do a certain sort of like area of job, we actually find them wanting. Yeah. And so there is a form of deficit, skills deficit that is kind of apparent within even the space of education, where we have teachers, doing what they do, school leaders doing what they do. I mean, this year I saw at least 3 schools advertise for their schools to shut down, to be sold. But the important thing, I think, when it comes to technology and let me just hold on to this area. I think, first of all, what beats my heart is, like I said at the beginning, technology is not begging you, it's not asking you a favor. Technology is going to is running beyond you. I said it's a moving train. You lose. You say, how did they say it? I think it's my kids that say that thing. You snooze, you lose. Um, yeah. And my goal is, if there's anything I'll say, is don't snooze, because you would lose. You know, if anything, technology has been my biggest opportunity. Any growth I have is as a result of technology. Why? I started out in the classroom. As I was in the classroom, I was trying and testing different ways to reach all children, which is why I became an inclusion advocate, because I began to learn that I could support children in alternative ways of learning. So, for example, for kids who couldn't read, it was in the classroom I realized, and I didn't Google this. It was in my classroom that I realized that just because a child cannot read doesn't mean they cannot comprehend. And I say this statement everywhere I go. It was while I was in the classroom that I realized that. And then immediately I switched, I started looking for the first stage, which is to substitute for children who could not read at the time. So because I wanted to solicit their comprehension levels, I would record the story, have them listen to it, and orally tell me their answers. And I realized many times they could respond. How would I record those stories? On my phone, using every phone has an audio recording. And that's what I did, and that's where I started from. And when I was doing all of these things, I realized that, some of these things I do in the classroom that I test run and I find results, I can share it. I mean, if I stay in my classroom, how much can people know of what I'm doing or what I'm reading? And then I started blogging. So I started blogging, and I blogged, and I started with the free blog, which is Blogger of Google. It still exists today. There's a paid version, but there's a free version. All I needed to do was have internet. And that's when, my skills expanded. The likes of Jimmy Disu, who people see me serving as his consultant, education consultant on his show, that's how they found me, right? And then from there, I started putting my digital footprints all around, and that's how folks started knowing me. So why I'm using my own personal story is, don't snooze, because actually you lose. You lose opportunities, you lose the window of growing your career, growing your strength, and enabling your voice, amplifying that same voice, um, and losing kind of like opportunities that you don't want to be older and regret that I should have done this, I should have done that. You don't want to say that kind of thing. And technology is such an enabler, and at the same time, such a disruptor. Um, and with technology, you make a case all the time. You make a case to prove a point about what kids can do, what you can do. Yeah, so I don't know, really about mindset shifting, and also about making sure that you take the tide while it serves, and it's already serving.
Thank you so much. And as we wrap up, I know we had some conversation in recent times, and also when you think about some of our sphere of influence, the likes of Edverse, Dimeji Falana, Daria
Mm,
Debayo, and different people, you
mm,
know, uh, I would like you to stress on, the angle of instructional design or
mm,
instructional designers. I know that you've had recent conversations around that. Just so you
mm,
just, maybe give it like a, how do I put it, a freebie. What
mm,
should people understand when we talk about being an instructional designer, especially as a career
mm.
transitioning tech?
Absolutely. This is a very beautiful question. So, what should people think of? An instructional designer is someone who designs, and I'm using the word design, but I'll change that. Someone who creates and curates. So there's a creation and a curation. Creates and curates learning experiences for teachers and students. I say stress it because oftentimes people miss the point that it's really about the children only. But actually, it's not true, because the instructional designer is someone who understands the science of teaching and learning experiences, and creates and packages the total experience between a teacher and a student in a classroom or in any classroom scenario. Sometimes it can be in a digital space, physical space, whatever platform space. And instructional designers aren't only limited to education in the education sphere, because everywhere in the world, everyone needs some form of learning, whether it's designing a learning experience in the medical field, designing a learning experience in the engineering field, whatever field, instructional designers fit into that space. So an instructional designer is someone who creates and curates learning experiences for teachers and students, or learning experience in a in a teaching and learning situation. I'm using very simple words because I want it to make sense. I don't want to use big words. And the instructional designers, what you do in literal terms is that you actually help document, write, create step one to step infinity of what participants in the learning experience will say and do. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you serve in the many capacities. You could serve in creating the blueprint for that, and then also in creating the daily experience, or the daily and weekly and monthly experience, depending on the modules that are being offered for that to happen. Yeah, so that's my best way
Wow,
of simplifying what you do.
fantastic. There's so much we could do. We could go on and on and on, but we're going to end the show on that note today. Thank you, Rhoda, for joining us. Thank you for making these things look a lot simpler. It's not
Thank
it's not
you.
scary any longer. Instructional design. So which actually you've opened the door for people, because a lot of
Hmm.
people look at some things like you know it's not for me. It's not for people like us. Um,
Yeah, that's not
instructional
true.
design.
That's why teachers.
You
Yeah,
just don't break it into bits and pieces and
yeah.
all those spooky deep stuff
Yeah,
around it.
people, teachers don't know how far-reaching they can be. How
Wow,
far-reaching, because the fact that you're able to make someone learn something that they didn't know before. Oh my goodness, that's something. You can actually walk into your back and say, you know what, I can help you fix or solve your problems. All these problems people are having with staff, not being able to do this. I can tell you exactly the kind of learning they need.
yeah, because you've also made people understand that it's not just needed in the school space, it's actually
No,
a need across industries, a
yeah,
skill that is desirable to many.
yeah.
So there you have it, guys. This is the Good Morning Education Show. We'll be here tomorrow, same time, and it's going to be an exciting moment tomorrow. And we hope Rhoda is also going to join us to put some fire to the vibe on the
Yes,
Good Morning Education Show. And we would not leave you without saying our usual words. Rhoda, I hope you still remember.
yes. So
So at
I
the
do.
count of two, we're going to say one, two, go. It's
It's
always a
always a great
good
morning
morning
on the Good
on the Good
Morning
Morning
Education
Education Show.
Show.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.